everybody, here is part 3 of multiplying and dividing rational numbers. So this video will just cover division with fractions. So there's a couple things we need to review. First, to divide rational numbers, we'll use the same rules as dividing integers. Those rules to remember are the quotient of two rational numbers with the same sign is always positive. That means a negative divided by a negative is positive. Positive divided by a positive, positive. The quotient of two rational numbers with different signs are negative though. So if I have a negative divided by a positive, negative divided by a positive, my quotient will be a negative. Let's do some division of fractions rules, reviews. Make sure to write this somewhere on your note sheets, maybe in that blank space off to the right under the fill in the blanks. Let's say I have 2.5 and I divide it by 1/2. My very first step, always, this is incredibly important, is that you must change to improper fractions. We didn't always when we were adding and subtracting, but we have to when we're dividing. Then we'll keep the first fraction the same. Division of fractions, though, is just like multiplication of the reciprocal. So dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. 5/2 divided by 1/2 is the same as 5/2 times the reciprocal of 1/2. That means that I invert numerator and denominator to get 2/1. Now I can multiply and simplify. When we're multiplying fractions, remember that we multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. So in this case, I would get 5 times 2 is 10 over 2 times 1, 2. Now, we, in the last video, covered some of how we can do that quick simplification step here. So I see that 2 and 2 have a common factor of 2, so I can simplify that to be 1 and 1. This is now 5/1, which gets us the final answer of 5. Remember here, we don't need common denominators, but you must simplify. So to review, change any mixed numbers to improper fractions, take the reciprocal of the second number, multiply and simplify. Those are our 3 surefire steps. The difference is we're going to add in some negatives. So just like when we were adding and subtracting, let's always keep our sign with our numerator. So in this case, I have negative 6/5 divided by negative 1/2. I keep negative 6/5 the same. I change division to be multiplication by the reciprocal. So I'm multiplying by the reciprocal of negative 1/2, which is negative 2/1. I can go ahead and multiply numerator times the numerator, denominator times denominator. Negative 6 times negative 2 is a positive 12. 5 times 1 is 5. You can leave this as a mixed number of 12, or a mixed number of 2 and 2/5, or an improper fraction of 12/5. Notice something else. I included the sign in here. You also don't have to. You can carry out the division and say, I know that dividing a negative by a negative will get me a positive quotient. Let's try example 2 together. My first step, which I already did for us here, was changing any mixed numbers to improper fractions. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26. It's negative, so I have negative 26/5. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, so I have 7 divided by 3. Now I have negative 26/5 divided by 7/3. My first step is to say, or my next step I should say, is that we have negative 26/5. I change division to be multiplication by the reciprocal. So I'm now multiplying by 3/7. Let's multiply numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, and go from there. So we have negative 26 times 3. I know that 3 times 6 is 18, so that's 8. Carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And negative times a positive is still a negative, so this is negative 78. I then have 5 times 7, that's 35. So this is negative 78/35. Let's go ahead and make this a mixed number. I know that 35 times 2 is 70, so I could fit 2 35s into negative 78 and still be left with 8/35. Now, I had a negative divided by a positive. That tells me that my final answer is negative. Again, you have two options. You can keep your negatives with you the whole time, or at the end, just say, is it still negative or positive? Our last answer here is just to discuss what happens when we have more than one step. Now, we must follow order of operations. However, if we have a bunch of division just in a line, we always read that left to right. The order of division matters, but the order of addition and multiplication does not. Now, the difference here is that we're not going to read it left to right because we have parentheses. We must follow order of operations and first divide the parentheses. Now, I also took the step of going from negative 1 5/9 to negative 14/9, just making my mixed number an improper fraction. So let's first do what's in the parentheses. That says negative 2/3 divided by 6/7. Now, I know that what I can do instead is say this is negative 2/3, keep the first one, change to multiplication, and change this to its reciprocal. Negative 2/3 times 7/6. Let's go ahead and I'm going to do the simplification step here. I know that 2 and 6 have a greatest common factor of 2. That means I can divide 6 by 2 and get 3. Divide negative 2 by 2 and get negative 1. Now this makes my multiplication a little bit easier because this right here is negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. 3 times 3 is 9. So this parenthesis is now negative 7/9. I am then taking negative 14/9 and I'm dividing it by negative 7/9. I don't know if any of you are starting to think this problem just got a little bit better. Instead of division, so we'll keep negative 14/9. Instead of division, we're going to multiply. Instead of negative 7/9, let's take the reciprocal. That would then be negative 9/7. Here's the step where if you want to just multiply numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator like we did over here, go for it. But this step will simplify your process. Negative 9 and 9 have a common factor of 9. Negative 9 divided by 9 is negative 1. 9 divided by 9 is 1. Negative 14 and 7 also have common factors. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Negative 14 divided by 7 is negative 2. Let's multiply numerator, denominator. Negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Our final answer then is 2/1, which simplifies to 2. Now, let's just check our sign really quickly. We had a negative divided by a positive got us a negative. A negative divided by a negative got us a positive. So we're fine in saying that our final answer there is positive 2. Our last thing is going to be to try that real world example together. Example 4 says, how many 1 1/4 packages can you make with 7.5 pounds? So I have 7.5 pounds. How many 1 1/4 groups could I make there? That's going to be division because I'm dividing 7.5 into 1 1/4 pound packages. So I want to know what is 7.5 divided by 1 1/4. What's our first step? To take our mixed numbers, make improper fraction. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. This is 15/2, divided by 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5, 5/4. Instead of division, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So 15/2 times 4/5. Again, if you take that simplification step, it slows down some of your work at the end. Now, 4 and 2 have a common factor of 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 15 and 5 also have a common factor. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. So now our final answer is 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 divided by 1 is 6 packages. One thing to note right here is that, again, you can just do numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, but doing this step will, again, it'll make you not have to simplify at the very end.